All right, welcome to the Flipping Junkie podcast. Super glad that you've tuned in for this episode. I've got a good friend, Laurel Sagen, on the show. And, basically Laurel from Sacramento, she's an entrepreneur, founder of Laurel Buys Houses. And she first began flipping houses in 1999 and has continued to expand that business and team over all the years. Today, her and her team have flipped over 1,000 houses, and her work has been featured on HGTV and multiple home tours. So she's got a lot of experience, and super pumped to have her on the show too, because she's got a unique personality that I like a lot. And, I think has really resonated with the people that know her, and her way of buying houses is kind of, it's very personable. And that's what I like about it. Her approach to working with sellers is very personable. And so hoping to get some nuggets about that and what she's done over the last year and where she's going in this year. So welcome to the show, Laurel.
Hey, thanks, Danny. It's good to see you.
Yeah, it's good to see you too. We were just talking about how it's been probably 2.5 years since we were together in Costa Rica for that event.
That was crazy.
See, a lot's happened since then.
Yep. It really is kind of interesting. But yeah, that was a great mastermind. And I, me, I love education, and I spent a lot of time trying to get better and learn better what I do. So
yeah, you've done well. 1,000 houses, I'd say, is pretty darn good. So
yeah, it's pretty fun. So
yeah. And the majority of those is actually fix and flip, right? Or
right. Yeah, no, we fix and flip a lot. We do partnerships with investors and kind of let somebody else do the heavy lifting on some, but and more as the older I get. But love to do the high end stuff too. So we're not just doing paint and carpet. We're doing where we'll take a 1,200 square foot house and make it a 4,000 square foot, buy it for 400,000, sell it for 1.3.
adding a ton of value.
Yeah, and it's fun. It takes a long time. It's a lot of work, but we love it. And then of course we've done a lot of quick fixes too. Carpet and paint, cosmetic fixtures, more working class houses too. We've done a lot of those too.
Cool. Well, I'd like to find out about everybody's, entry into this business, right? What got you excited about this business back in 1999 that got you started and going after it?
Well, I worked in nonprofits most of my, I'm 60. So just so you know,
Oh, wow.
I'm talking about most of my adult life. It's, over 40 years of working. And up until 99, I worked mostly in nonprofits. And then I went into technical recruiting, and I started making insane money. I mean, insane money. The first 20 years I was married, we went on 5 vacations. The next 5 years, we went on 20 vacations. And my wife thought that was much better. Wanted to know how we could continue to do that, right?
Yeah, no
So
kidding.
I read this book called Retire Rich, Retire Young by Robert Kiyosaki, and started playing that game cash flow. And I was in the Bay Area as a technical recruiter at the time, but I was from Sacramento. And so the house values in Sacramento made a lot more sense. So we started taking the advice and buying rentals and rehabbing them up. And got some friends together, some partnerships. Some worked, some didn't, but we did really, really well. Then the tech crash happened. So I retired from that and started flipping houses a little bit. And then the housing crash happened.
So you rode two ways.
Huh?
You rode two ways.
Well, it was boom, boom. Yeah. I was silly too. I knew we would have a downturn. I had done enough research to know the market wasn't great, but I figured about a 25% downturn, and it turned out to be like a 75% downturn.
Mm-hmm.
And then all the renters learned that they didn't have to pay their rent anymore for some reason. And I chased my tail down for a while. But learned a lot during that time too, which I use a lot now too, because I learned a lot about how banks work and stuff like that. So that was a good thing to learn.
So since the recovery When did it kind of fully recover there? What was it, like 2012 or so?
Yeah, actually, it was probably, it started getting hot at the end of 2011, 2012. Yeah.
And so what was your focus from there going forward?
Well, we had started flipping in 2009, buying stuff from the bank. I started flipping instead of renting right after we thought the crash was over in 2008, and I lost money on the first 3 houses I did. So I was in a pretty deep well by then, right? I had all these rentals, and I was, struggling. And so we started buying these lower end Class C properties in what we call strawberry fields, and buying them for 65, putting 15, 20 into them, putting a renter in them, and property management, going to the Bay Area where all the software engineers were and all the money, the San Jose, Silicon Valley money, and selling them for like 115. So we were making $20,000 a flip. And we were peddling them ourselves at these real estate clubs, right? And by this time, Dan Lakander and I had created a partnership. He had been my real estate agent, and we decided to partner up in these flips. And we lost insane money on our 2 first high-end flips, right? They were high-end flips. We lost insane money. It was crazy. But we were making 15, 20,000. We were able to eat and keep the crew that we had created during that time going, because it was real important to us. We had 5 guys. During this time, I had to get my construction license because you can only flip so many houses. We were flipping 15, 20 houses a year during that time. And then by 2012, we started moving up in the market, doing and started making some money. I mean, it took us probably until 2015 to get back even.
Wow.
We lost 6 figures on those first 2 flips. We just chased the market down, because the market in Sacramento went down first, and then it leveled, and we thought it was over. And then it went way down in 2009. So
it caught you during the flat spot, huh?
Yeah, we bought these houses from the bank. We thought, oh man, REO. I was waiting for REO, man. I was so excited. I heard all about REO, right?
Yeah.
Let's buy some REO houses, and then
it works. We got
our little butts handed to us, and then later on, we were, I think I would have made more money doing some other things.
Yeah. But there's lessons that came from that, right? I mean, you had to learn to be more efficient and, understand where the market was going, and maybe, I don't know. I mean, what are some of the things that you take from that you feel like you learned during those times?
Well, one is that that you can go way below zero in your net worth. Okay. I always say, oh, well, what the heck, what I could lose, okay. I was worth $8 million at one point on paper. And then I was worth -3 million on paper. Right?
Wow. Yeah.
And I learned that banks don't keep their word. So don't count on that. If it ain't in writing, it ain't happening, right? But the other thing is that if you stick to your values and you keep working, and you're smart and you can think outside of the box, like we created this cookie cutter of these homes, and now those homes are worth, again, 300,000 or more. But at the time, we needed the eating money, right? And we worked our way as the market went up. Part of our business went to the high end stuff again, and part of our business stayed here. The other thing we had to learn was how to get better deals. There are so many investors, and a lot of national investors came to Sacramento. I don't know if you remember all those big funds that came.
Yeah.
Blackstone and all those guys. They were in Sacramento just competing the heck out of us. So we had to get creative on how to find deals, right? And that's where we learned that I had a particular talent talking to homeowners. So,
why hadn't you done that before? Was there a fear of doing that, or was there
Well, marketing was not our thing. How do you find them? I'm not going to go around knock on doors for people. And Dan is my real estate agent at the time. And he is so good making great relationships with the realtors in town that people would bring us deals. But at some point, that wasn't going to work. And don't get me wrong, we were, still doing about half our deals would come from realtors that we spent a lot of time and energy creating powerful, strong relationships with. And we'd always relist with them. And they could count on that we would add a lot of value, right? That we would try to maximize the value for that neighborhood. And so their listing would, be a nice listing when it came through. And we didn't care. Once one of our houses, the realtor made 5 legs. He represented the buyer, the seller. He represented us. He sold it. He represented us and the buyer, and he sold the buyer's house, right?
Oh, man.
He made more money on that house. It was a $900,000 house than we did. Wow. And we were happy for that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You never worry about what the other guy's making, only worry about what you're making, and you be appreciative, right? I mean, we made that guy over $1 million that year. Well, we, not $1 million in his own pocket, but he went like, I don't remember all these clubs. There's really, you could talk to Dan about the realtor clubs, but I mean, he was like in the $20 million sales club or something.
Wow.
And he was so happy, but we still made sure, like, we gave him a great bottle of wine to thank him. We recognized his birthday, sent him and his wife places on their anniversary. We spent a lot of time doing those kind of personal touches for him, even though he was making insane money, And he did nice things for us too. Don't get me wrong. He's a smart marketing person too, but you always just worry about what you're making. Don't always worry about what the next guy's making. And the wholesalers, we don't have a problem paying a wholesale fee, and sometimes the wholesaler makes as much as we do, but as long as I'm happy with my return, that's great. Right.
Yeah.
So, but it was just,
I mean, relationships, it is about relationships. It's not about this one-time transaction and you care less about the other person. It really matters in this business to build those relationships, because they'll continue, and you don't know when sometimes, to bring value to both people.
Right. And, that's one of the reasons I still participate really strongly and sponsor all the RIAs here, even though I don't really need RIAs for my business. And whenever one of the RIA leaders asks me to speak on something, I'm always trying to be as generous as possible, because you just never know when a relationship there will make a difference for you or for them. The truth is, I'm of a service mindset. I always figure if, the more you help people get what they want, the more you're going to get what you need. And but relationships, until somebody proves themselves completely false, I'm going to be in their corner 100%, and I'm going to do what I can to take care of that relationship, right?
Yeah, and before we started recording this episode, we were talking about what you were doing last year and what you're moving into doing more of, and something that you had mentioned was along the lines of partnerships, doing more partnering with people. So do you mind explaining the different ways that you want to partner with people?
No problem. We're finding a lot of deals now. And so sometimes that deal is better off with a young investor, right, who's going to do the work himself or is just starting their company out, rather than it might sit in my inventory for a couple of months. So we've started creating where over the last few years, where we are partnering with an investor, letting them take the deal, work with it, and we're being paid some of the profit, but being available to advise them if they want. So it's kind of like we're more hands off in that deal, and we're looking for some of our bigger, the older I get, the harder it is for me to spend all day on the job site, and I don't put my belt on very much anymore, and teaching construction to the guys, it's hard on your body, to tell you the truth, right?
Yeah.
It takes a lot of time. So so I'm really trying to transition my business. So we might be, one of the things we're considering is to actually partner with people, where we're doing half the deal together.
Yeah, and I want to
tell
get
you,
into the
you got to be careful there, though.
Yeah, I want to get into the exact details of what that looks like, because it's very interesting to me, and I want anybody listening that could be interested in working with you. But I want to step back a little bit, because you talked about teaching the guys how to fix up the houses. So you have a lot of rehab knowledge, right? So what is the extent of
Well, I'm a general contractor.
When it comes to
I'm a general contractor. My brother-in-law is probably one of the best finish carpenters in Northern California. So I was a finish. I did at one time was a finish carpenter and built furniture, but I learned how to build from the ground up over the last 20 years. Right? We take a 1,200 square foot house and we make it a 4,000 square foot house, high end, vaulted ceiling. I mean, I've learned how to work with engineers. And Dan and I don't do this ourselves. We have a team. Right? We have an interior designer, an architect, a civil engineer who works with us. We bring our pest guy in the beginning. We have landscape architects, lighting designers.
Wow. Yeah, that's high-end stuff.
When we do that high-end stuff, because, quite frankly, I see my walls are beige. Okay. That's not cool anymore, right?
It's all gray and white now.
Yeah, it's all, well, and it changes, right? So we use a lot of people to help us with that. But all the way along the way, I learned how to do that by hiring like the foundations. I hired a foundation guy, and then I just learned it, right? And I had my civil engineer come out and show me. I would have him check my forms, and he would teach me what needed to happen. Now, I can't do a high rise or anything like that, but when it comes to single family homes, I went to school. I mean,
that's hugely important, because you could have, things that could come back to bite you, flipping enough houses over time, something happening with one of the properties. And of course, you could be named in a suit, right? It may not have been, you could have had a contractor that did it, but they could include you, in the suit, and you got to deal with this stuff. So kind of, and not to scare people with that, but I mean, it behooves you to get some knowledge about what's going on, so that even when other people are doing the work, that you kind of have a good idea of whether it's right or wrong.
Right. And even when I partner with people, right, my name's on it. I'm going to check before you start covering anything. I need to check it. Right. And, I've seen enough. I've done over 1,000 houses now. I can tell. Right. It's like when I go in and I visit somebody to see their house, right? I can tell right away now, right? I have enough experience. So I don't need a home inspector to go to the house to do the inspection. But why is that? Because I went on 100 or 200 home inspections with a home inspector first, right?
Yeah.
When I started, I hired a home inspector and I dogged that guy on that home inspection, right? In fact, at one time I partnered with one of my home inspectors. And that didn't turn out to be 100% of a great of a deal, but I learned what to look for, right? And had him explain everything to me. And then I'd have a different home inspector. Sometimes I had 2 home inspections on a house before I bought it, especially when they were going to be a rental. Really? And I'd look, see what they learned, right? Home inspection's $100. That's cheap education.
Yeah, and just to be there to look at what they're looking at. What I did is I think it was like a Black & Decker home repair book. It was about that thick, and a bunch of like pictures, right? Because I didn't want you. It's kind of hard to read about problems. You got to see the pictures of the problems. The different materials for plumbing, what happens when you connect different materials, and all this kind of stuff. It was actually kind of fun to go through it. It's like I felt like I understood a lot more than I had previously. So I had some knowledge, and then working with contractors, being there, asking them questions, and not super basic stuff that I could have read in a book in a week, so that's really cool. And then take it to the next level. I'm sure you could teach me a ton of stuff that's beyond what I even know.
Right. Now that, now the investors have YouTube, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of stuff on YouTube too, but I have probably 10 books, one on, different, on different areas. And I have a lot of the books for the codes.
Hmm.
And there are, Black & Decker and a couple others make a code book that have pictures, right? And I have a bunch of those books too. That's how you learn.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. And so let's go back into what it looks like to partner then. Let's do sort of a scenario, right? So
Right. Well, right now, what you would actually do is if you had a deal, right, and you didn't know how to do the deal, you would come to me, and I would, because I've put.
now this is something I've already put under contract, or this is something that I
Maybe you
have
don't.
remotely
Maybe you
with
just
seller,
know
but I
somebody
haven't
who,
signed the deal.
somebody who has told you they would like to sell the house
Okay.
to you, and you don't even know how to put it under contract, right? I've worked with people in different ways, right? About that depends. Some people bring me the contract, and then we have to kind of look at the contract. A lot of times people, their contracts aren't any good, or they try to use the realtor form when they're not a realtor, and you really aren't allowed to do that in California, and obviously I've spent as much time as I learned fixing up houses, how to do a contract here in California, right? And my business partner, Dan, his wife is an attorney, but he's really good at real estate law too. So, but sometimes, most of the time, they just got somebody who wants to sell the house and they don't even know what to do, right? So I'll go with them and help them negotiate the deal, put the deal into a contract that works, and get it into escrow, right? Sometimes it's a deal that neither of us actually want to do, so we need to find an investor who wants to do the deal, right? And so that we'll, work with another investor even. So it could be a three-way kind of thing.
That's cool. Instead of just saying, hey, this isn't something that's, of interest to us, you say, let's find a way to profit from this.
Right. And we'll get part of the profit, and we'll divide the profit up depending on how much work everybody did. Some of them, if they want to do it and they don't have the money, maybe I give them the money to do the deal, right? Or we use my crew, or I'll help, or I'll just help them sometimes. Mostly we're nowadays, because I'm not doing as many deals myself, we'll get another investor involved, and partner up that way.
Cool.
And then they'll get a part of, depending on who did as much work, we'll divide up the profit. And one of the great things about doing this with young investors is it gives them an opportunity to learn, right? Because they're going to see every step of the way, right? And they can understand, oh, I see why she didn't want that in the contract, or I see why she said that to the person, or, oh my God, they had this, a lot of times, I hate to say it this way, but young investors don't listen to people, right? So you're sitting there in the living room talking to somebody, and they've told you something they need, but the other investor, they don't hear it because they don't want to understand it, or it doesn't fit their agenda.
I don't think it's just young investors.
Okay.
Well,
I was trying to be nice. And so I'm really good at listening to people, right? And sometimes that's what they learned from me, is they weren't listening. We'll walk out of there and they go, I had no idea that they were thinking that. I go, well, they told you, right? And then I'll explain to them what they missed. And then we'll walk out with a deal when they wouldn't have.
This is what I meant about your approach, the personable approach of talking with sellers. And it seems like a whole different ballgame with you and working with sellers. And can you explain a little bit more of that? Like, it's not just listening, but like, how do you get to a place where they're willing to share those things, or, what do you do?
Well, one of the things you've got to understand is that people are worried about you, right? They're afraid they're going to get taken. It's kind of like, just think of yourself when you go to a car lot and you really need to buy a car, but that salesman comes up to you, and what do you automatically say to them? Oh, I'm just looking. I don't need any help. I'm just looking. But you desperately need to buy a car, and you need it for a good price, and you need things, right? But we're so used to used cars or car salesmen trying to, well, they're that way too. And I have to tell you, most of my competitors go into a house and they're looking at the house. And they're noting everything that's wrong with the house, right? Man, if I had my druthers, I'd sit down in the living room with people and just talk to them about what's going on and why they need me, right? You got to know, most people know they should sell their house with a realtor. So if they're calling the investor direct, there is a reason for it. One, they're curious, and that's true. You know, they hear about this We Buy Houses stuff. It's more and more prevalent. But usually there's a reason why you're there. And you got to get that from them. So I just sit down and I start to talk to them. Why am I here? You know, how can I help? And then I have them show me the house. And I'm not really looking at the house. I'm looking at what is their situation and how can I help them get what they need? Because, you know, if I'm there, this is an emotional decision, right? So I got to understand their emotions. And that's 100% of the deal. If it's a straight numbers deal, I got to tell you, I often recommend a realtor to them if that's really what their family needs. And I'm not afraid to say, you know what, you're going to leave. And I'm open kimono with them and they know that. I'm like, okay, here's what you could sell the house for without doing any work. And, you know, this is what it'll cost you for the realtor fees and that. And this is what I can pay you for it cash, right? And they know I need to make a profit. So I tell them that right up front. You know, I have to make a profit. And they say, well, of course you're in business, right? Yeah. And that, so that takes that away from them. You know, my job is to have them make the best decision for their family. And if you go in, this is for them to make the best decision for their family. And it's not necessary. You got to know, though, it's not necessarily a financial decision, right? Some people, I mean, I have bought houses that were not safe. And I have bought beautiful houses. And, you know, they all know that they're going to lose 12% or more of the house to me because I need to make a profit and I got to buy and sell it twice. And you know how expensive it is to buy and sell a house, right? I'm going to pay their closing costs and I'm going to end up paying the realtor and on the other side. And I work with some really awesome realtors and I tell them, look, if you know what you decide is you want to sell this with a realtor and you don't know any realtors you can trust, here's the guy I would use to sell this house for me. And I give them his or her name, depending on what part of town it's in, right? And I say to him, call this guy or gal and look to, you know, and get the answers. Or, you know, sometimes people do need to sell in 10 days, right? Sometimes people need to move and they need time after the house closes. They need the money to do the move. Well, I can work that out with them. You know, I just bought a house. The family never met me. They're in Yuma. It was a probate. And there are a bunch of cars, boats, trailers in the house and at the house, and they didn't know what to do. So I'm doing all the DMV paperwork for them, right?
Wow.
I look to see where I can add value and what families need. Then I look at the house.
Yeah, that's and it can seem like a subtle point that I think, you know, somebody could hear and say, yeah, I get it. But to actually do that and see what it does for the situation, but you have to be genuine with it, right? Because it can be obvious when
it's just who I am.
You know, yeah, when you are doing it with the, you know, because you are willing to really give them that realtor's number, and then if they call and set up a listing or whatever, and then you don't get the deal,
sometimes I'll put them on the phone with the realtor.
I really wish they hadn't. It's got to really, they've got to feel like that's really what they want to do, and then you sleep great at night because you're helping people whether they sell to you or not, and it you know, you get paid back for being that way, for helping other people.
I've gotten referrals from family members for that. You know, I've had them recommend other houses to me. You know, we get a lot of referrals now. And Sacramento's a small town. I meet people at the Home Depot or at the grocery store all the time. I don't, this hat is distinctive for a reason, but it's also distinctive in the community, right? When I get a bad review on Yelp, I'm like, oh my God, what did I do? Right? Sometimes they're competitors, but if a deal doesn't work out, and most, 99% of my deals, when I give my word to buy a house, I do. It's only been a few times when I haven't, and that's when people are upset. So it's not when I buy their house they're upset. It's when I don't buy their house they get upset. So, but if you really care about people, you're going to be good at this business. And obviously I'm a good business person. I have employees who have children. I have a family myself. I need, my business partner's got 3 kids. We need to put them to college. I mean, this supports our families and our employees' families. But, I think there's 26 kids we support. So wow. we need to do good business, but we don't need to make $1 million on every deal. And we don't need to make the money when we buy a house from somebody. We can add the value to make a great profit, right?
Yeah, that's cool. So do you if somebody wants to buy it, partner with you, buy it and fix it up and sell it and add the value, are you willing to do that with people too, or is it just a case-by-case basis? I mean,
it's a case-by-case basis, and when anybody's partnering with anybody, you got to make sure it's a good fit. But they could send an email or fill out a form at Laurel Buys Houses. And if they're interested in working with us, maybe they have a deal in Sacramento. I only do Northern California. So I really, I've had people, and I don't do land or anything funny like that. I can do small multifamily. I've done a lot of small apartment buildings and stuff like that, but I don't do much more than that. But if somebody had a deal and they wanted to talk to me, they could call us. The number at laurelbuyshouses.com, www.laurel, Laurel, buys, buys, houses.com. If call us. My assistant answers the phone even in the evenings. And ask us, tell us what you got, or if you want to get a deal, Sam can tell you how to get on our list. You got to show you're serious, right? But if you want to be one of the people who gets to do the deal, gets to fix the house up and stuff, and you want a little advice, she'll tell you how to, to contact me and get interviewed to be on the, to get a house if we get one. Right now, our houses, we don't get as many, but we're hoping 2021 will be awesome, and a lot of pent up people needing to move.
Yeah.
Stuff cool. Like that. So, yeah.
So you said that they're going to have to show that they're serious. How would somebody show that they're serious? Like what do you feel like?
They talk to me, but they need to have some funds or the ability to borrow. If they don't, I know people who are lending money, and sometimes I lend money, but they mostly, if they fill out the form or talk to Sam and go to the website and show up when sometimes if you don't have a deal now to talk to me about, you have to wait till I find a deal that I'd be willing to partner with. So you could be on the list and know when we got a deal, and you can come see the deal and talk to us there. Okay. Yeah. We have a lot of people who lend us money and lend other people money. And sometimes I lend money, not as much now as I used to, but we can chat. My business partner, Dan, and I, or meet us at one of the RIAs. We're doing the RIAs on Zoom again. You can talk to me at a RIA, or, again, just call Sam and get an appointment to chat with me on the phone. We're kind of picky who we partner with.
Well, you should be. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a really good offer. Anybody that's in that area should definitely reach out to Laurel, because that, just the wealth of knowledge, and she's been in this business a long time and done so many homes, been featured on HGTV. How did you do that?
Well, that it was the House Hunters, right? And I think that we were the house that was too nice for them, right? They'd actually, that TV show is a little funny. They already bought the house, and then they went back and looked for houses that they would have looked at. So they never actually saw our house. But we had a gorgeous restored craftsman home in the neighborhood that they bought in, and we were up here and they bought down here, right? So they feature 3 houses, the one they bought, and so they kind of reverse engineer that one. But yeah, it was great to have our house on there. And then we have been in the Business Journal for an article about $1 million homes. And then one of ours was featured on a home tour. We also got an award for our restoration of a craftsman, an 1800s craftsman that we did in Woodland, California, which is a suburb of Sacramento. So the city had a picture of our house. But this was several years after we did it, so we were even happier. Yeah. And it had been on the home tour. That was one of the houses we lost a lot of money on in 2009.
Those are all the things that make you stand out in your market, and really separate you from, when people are concerned about competition. Most competition is not true competition. If you're really out there and doing right by people, and having these situations that do come up, if you're open to them happening, like HGTV and different things like this, and being active in the RIAs, you don't need, like you said, you don't need to be there, but having that presence and everything just sets you apart. And I think that's something to take away too from this episode, is to know that competition, most people aren't going to do the things above and beyond because they're so focused on just the deal, just the house, not the seller, not the situation, not helping people. Things will be different when things are looked at that way, when you're truly trying to help.
Right. And win-win isn't enough for us. It's got to be win-win-win-win-win, right? The seller needs to win, we need to win, our investors need to win, and our employees need to win, right? Everybody needs to be served, nourished, and uplifted in everything we do, or we just won't do it. We won't.
So what's in store for 2021?
What's that?
What's in store for this year?
We have some very exciting new marketing channels. I might even do more. I think we're going to do more of these deals where we bring investors in to learn and work with us. I think there's a lot of pent-up demand. I think we're going to see in the second and third quarter this year. Obviously, I'm going to speak at the RIAs again. We're going to do more of this. I don't know about you, Danny. I know you're you're a computer guy, but we're doing LinkedIn this year. We're going to do some Facebook groups. I've hooked up with the group of the Association of the Assisted Living People, because I'm finding I was brought in by the police in 2019, several bad situations where there was elder abuse, where adult children of people were abusing them and financially with their homes. And I've helped them set up with fiduciaries. I've made a lot of contacts,
Oh, wow.
And so I think we'll probably do some work where we're actually helping people find a place in assisted living to live, right? So we're going to do some of that this year. And then just more of, going out and buying houses, flipping them. I think as soon as people get these vaccines in their system, we'll be good to go.
With helping people with the assisted, get into assisted living where there's abuse cases and things like that, typically those houses that all happened in are in rough shape, and then financially it just has to be like sold, right? It helps. I mean, you guys all, is that the approach?
Right. And while we're trying to get them out of there, we will front the money for them to move into the assisted living. Right. So even before we close escrow, it takes about 10 grand to get into a good assisted living place with your deposits and all that, and the doctor stuff you need. And so we have we're willing to do that. And so just before the COVID closed everything down, I was working with a couple of assisted living places in some different areas to work with them to help people. So sometimes they have somebody who has a house they can't sell because it's in bad shape. But sometimes, and more often, I find somebody who needs to go into assisted living, or maybe they have a little dementia and their kids live across the country. And so I can get the resources here locally involved. And so I want to learn more about how to help people and refer people to the different areas they need. And then, if we're buying their house, we're in contract, we have the preliminary return, we know they own that house. I can forward the money to the assisted living place so that they can get moved in while we're dealing with the house. And I got to tell you, there's been some terrible things going on, especially if adult children are living there and taking doing drugs and stuff, and having bad people over. The houses are so bad you couldn't sell them on the open market. So, and I've been brought in several times by the sheriff's office here, and I find that really, really rewarding. And then obviously we make a nice house for that neighborhood, turn around and sell it to a good family that helps the neighborhood.
So did you built the relationship with the sheriff's office then, saying, hey, if you come across a situation like this? I mean,
we did, but then the district attorney looked at it and said, you guys aren't doing anything wrong, but it could look bad. So we're not doing that anymore. We're working on it from other angles right now. But I'm always open if somebody wants to refer a problem to me. And we are getting known for being problem solvers in our community.
Cool.
Mostly we're finding it's not, it's really rare that situation happens, mostly we're talking to adult children who are not in town, who need to they're not here to do all the research. So we can get this, give them some of the research. Right.
Yeah. Like helping out. Like, you consider it from their point of view, if they're talking to other investors, what is that situation usually like? I would imagine, hey, okay, what's the situation? How can I get in to see the house so I can make you an offer? And that's the extent of it, right?
And we're like, okay, what does your mom need? When does she need it? How can we help? What resources are there available in the community? And that's how I've learned about some of this stuff, is just because, oh my God, we need to find somebody who can, who can help when mom. I'm like, I'll call them, your mom should not be by herself. And sometimes, by the way, there are community people who go in and make a house safer. And really all they need is grab bars, ramps, the house retrofit. And we set them up with a nonprofit that we support that goes in and helps make the house safe. And they can stay in their house for longer. Or there's several care places. So we don't always have to buy the house. Danny, that's the thing people need to recognize. You don't always need to buy the house. And you don't just leave people if they don't buy the house with nothing. You give them some resources here. So
yeah, no, that's awesome. So now, being that we're just over the new year when we're recording this, just, you don't have to give your actual goals, but what types of goals do you guys set? Are you setting like house goals? Are you setting financial, profit goals?
Well, we make a certain amount per house normally. Like on average, we've done enough houses so we have an average, right? So we want to we're going back to our 2019 year.
Okay, yeah.
And we're going to double what we did in 2019.
Oh,
okay.
wow.
So that's our goal, is to do twice as many houses as we did in 2019. We're going to pretend like 2020 didn't really happen. Once we knew what we were up against, we made new financial goals, and we made those goals, but it wasn't the year we had hoped when we started 2020. Yeah. So we're going to go back to 2019, take those goals, and we want to double the number of houses we did, and hopefully up the profit a little bit per house. We want to always be better, more efficient. The market's so hot here in Sacramento that sometimes, I have to be conservative because it's not always my money involved, or I have an investor who I need to, so I have to be conservative with what we feel like the house will sell for.
Mm-hmm.
But we're often beating what we think the house will sell for. So we want to continue to do that. Obviously, that's kind of cream on the top,
Awesome.
right?
Well, thanks so much for sharing with us today on the podcast and offering, to partner with people if anybody wants to reach out to you. And you said to head over to your website, laurelbuyshouses.com. Is there any other place that anybody, if they want to reach out to you, is that the best place?
Yeah, there's a form there, or you could send me an email at Laurel Sagen, Sagen at Gmail. That's a good place too. Laurel Sagen at gmail.com, and send an email.
Cool.
Okay.
Right.
Gosh, Danny, it was good to see you.
Yeah, it's good to see you too. Are you reading any good books lately?
I am doing some what do you call goal setting stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm learning about mind mapping right now. It's not really a book, it's kind of a discipline. So I'm trying to be more creative in that. And then Never Split the Difference is kind of my Bible. So I'm going to reread that this year. And then there's one called The Subtle Art of Not Giving a F.
Yeah,
that I've been told to read, so I'm going to read that.
Last time I went to the bookstore, I was looking at that section, and it was like every other book had, the F word in it, and I thought it was a pretty interesting trend for book titles. But anyway.
Somebody tells me I spend too much time worrying about things I shouldn't really worry about, so they want me to read that. So I said I would read it.
Yeah, it sounds like.
I do Audible on my phone. I'm always listening to something inspirational or podcast. Like your podcast and other podcasts. I'm always listening to stuff. So
cool. Well, thanks again for being on. It's great catching up.
Yeah, good to talk to you too. Thanks a lot for the opportunity. Okay.
Bye.